The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Oh, welcome back to the show. Today I invite film critic and writer Molly Henery to discuss the 1970 Dario Argento film, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. But first, a little show note. This is the first episode of the show I'm recording since it debuted. If a few points made up till now sound dated, or if you think I'm ignoring feedback, it's because the show wasn't out yet. When the first 3 weeks were recorded, your hint is I have a beard on the video ones, so that's your hint. Speaking of feedback, I'm not above acknowledging that on the Brandon Peters Show, sometimes mistakes are made. For instance, when in response to our first music video review for Paula Abdul's Opposites Attract with Scott Middleton from Forbes, listener Jennifer G shares, Rush Rush was not on Forever Your Girl, but her follow-up album, Spellbound. Jennifer, you are 100% correct, as we were 100% wrong. Thank you for that. We can clearly see Scott Middleton is the Forbes box office analyst and not the Billboard Hot 100 analyst. And now, onto the show. My guest today is the creator of the website, The Blogging Banshee, a Tomato Meter approved critic with contributions to such publications as Fangoria, We Are Horror, and Certified Forgotten. I'm honored to welcome to the Brandon Peters Show, Molly Henery.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Welcome to the show. You are the first, if people listened to all of my stuff before, you're new to me. And I'm going to get to know you, so that's great. I'm very excited about new people because I said that when I was starting the show, and they're like, "Well, these are some familiar faces." But let's go back. We don't need to learn about birth and what school you went to, what year you graduated. Let's start with the Blogging Banshee. Is that was your first foray into just online writing?
Or yes, it was. I started my website in January of 2015. So this year was the 5-year anniversary. And it kind of started because I'm the annoying person while watching a horror movie where most of the time I can guess what's going to happen. And so I'd be watching a movie with my husband or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, I bet this is what's going to happen next. And then it would happen. And he got annoyed with me. I was like, why don't you just write horror films? And I'm not comfortable enough at this point with doing that. So it's like, maybe I'll at least start putting my thoughts down. And the idea of contributing to other places at that point wasn't even on my radar. So I was just like, I'm going to start my own little website just so I can have a place to put my thoughts and random friends can view it. And it ended up kind of, I don't want to say blowing up because I'm not famous or anything like that, but it grew quite a bit from there. And then I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, somewhere in that range. I started co-hosting a podcast with a fellow horror lover. And that was kind of when I started being able to do more coverage, for film festivals and things like that. And that kind of kicked that off. Even though the podcast didn't last very long, it definitely helped spring me into other things. And then about 2 years ago is when I started contributing to other websites as well.
Did they reach out to you to contribute, or did you inquire, or just networking?
It was a little bit of both. I would say a lot of them were ones where I would see that they were looking for writers, so I would send in a pitch. There have been a couple that reached out to me. One of my regular columns, Uterus Horror, used to be for Fangoria. And then when everything this year happened with them, Certified Forgotten was nice enough to offer me a new home for the article, and they've been amazing and super supportive. And I'm really excited about October now, since we're already planning what that one's going to be. So it's been kind of a mix of people asking me and me just pitching anywhere that I think might want my writing.
That's great. So you took your husband, so you're like, okay, you said write horror. What about write about horror?
Yes.
You used the word about. And one of your things that you write, like, so horror, that's been a lifelong love of yours, or did you have to come into it?
Oh no,
Like
it's
you claim Nightmare on Elm Street was the gateway?
when I was 4 years old. So it's pretty much been my entire life.
Excellent. Excellent.
I my first film related memory is A Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 4. I mean, I know I probably grew up on Disney and stuff too, but that is the first vivid memory that I have related to a movie.
That's awesome. Yeah, New Nightmare was my first R-rated movie in the theater. So
Nice.
at an underage, had to have someone buy me a ticket. So I'm linked into the Elm Street stuff too. You're talking about with your article that I'm the uterus horror.
Yes.
Which I think that is a book waiting to happen. Like, that is a study that is great. Tell people about that, because I'm a big fan of this article.
Yeah, uterus horror, it's funny. It actually went through a really long process before it became a regular column. It was initially pitched as a book, and then it was going to be a podcast, and then it became a column. But it's funny. I think I've talked about this before, but the idea of uterus horror started with an internet meme on Twitter.
Oh.
You've probably seen it because there have been a lot of variations of it where it's like the cartoon lunchroom with the different tables, and they'll have different groupings. Sometimes it's groupings of music or movies.
Oh yeah.
And you have to say which table you're going to sit at. There was one like that where one of the tables had Ginger Snaps, Carrie, and Jennifer's Body. And that was kind of when it clicked for me. I was like, holy shit, there's this whole subgenre specific to young women either going through puberty or coming into their sexuality for the first time. And it doesn't have a name, and no one's really, I mean, people talk about those individual films because they're amazing, but no one's really taken a look at collectively what the different themes are in those kinds of films. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to do that.
It's brilliant. Like, it is something like, when I think I first saw your Ginger Snaps one, but I was like, that's genius. Like, somebody's going to get a book out of that. And apparently it's going to go the reverse way. It's going to be articles into book. Hopefully, like, I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great study. I can't wait to see which ones enter your canon of uterus horror. It's an exciting thing to see every month.
And there's a lot of them too. Like, through my research, I realized there are so many films, especially just in the past 10 years, that fit into that category.
Mm-hmm.
And I purposely named it uterus horror to piss men off. Sorry, men.
I'm sorry I didn't get pissed. I was sorry.
No, I mean, it pisses off a specific
Right.
group.
I hear you. You know, and you could go back and you could be like, you said exploitation in the 70s. I'm saying play it right back, because there's plenty to work with there that you could turn around and show what's really there.
Yeah.
But that's great. No, I love that. And so, you know, blogging and stuff like that, probably, like, you're kind of in the realm I am. Like, what aspirations do you hope to get? Where do you go from here? I know you have Blogging Banshee on like pause right now, but
yes,
it's your home base.
Which, although I'm probably going to unpause it for a specific film festival that I forgot I had applied to before I paused it. But
fair enough.
But what I've been kind of working on, because back in 2018, I earned my master's degree in professional creative writing. So kind of behind the scenes, I've been working on fiction writing as well.
Okay.
So what I'm working towards is what I was hoping to have more time with by pausing my website, which hasn't worked for me yet, is to be able to complete a collection of short horror stories and eventually find a publisher for those, obviously. And then I also have 1 or 2 ideas for either short film scripts or feature film scripts. I'm finally feeling like I might be ready to do that.
Hey, more power to it. It's good stuff. If it's in there, get it out.
Yeah.
Get it out. Even if it looks sloppy, you got it out. You can move on. It's good, but I don't think yours would be sloppy. And always leave that blogging banshee. It's a home base. You never know how important that is. I found out recently when I started this show that I had at one point I had my blog. I was writing for Why So Blue, and I was doing my podcast called Cinema Cavalcade, and that if that sounds like too much, it was. And when I was ending my Cult Cinema Cavalcade, I had no way to write a piece to talk about it. And I went back to my Naptown Nerd blog, and I saw the last thing I wrote was Cult Cinema Cavalcade begins. I was like, oh, well, Cult Cinema Cavalcade ends. I'm back. There we go. So leave it there. It's helpful. It's a nice comfort zone to just get a little more personal if you want to. But anyway, enough about me. We're here with you, and we are going to we are going to talk The Bird with the Crystal Plumage today. So let's bring in the perverts, as they say. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is written and directed by Dario Argento and stars Tony Musante, Susie Kendall, who you might recognize from Torso and Spasmo, a couple other Giallo films, Enrico Maria Salerno, Ava Renzi, and Umberto Rejo. And it tells the tale of an American writer on a long holiday in Rome who witnesses an attack late one night in an art gallery that is in connection with a recent series of serial murders. I forgot to tell you, Molly, don't be afraid to spoil.
Okay.
We're talking, this thing is now 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
Whew. I write. I don't do math. All right. So coming in, we went through a list kind of movies to pick to talk about. Are you what's your familiarity with Argento or Giallo or the Italian film productions of the 70s and 80s coming in?
I mean, I don't know if I'm super familiar with the production side of it, but I mean, I love Argento films. I'm kind of slowly working through his entire filmography right now. I mean, I'd seen a chunk of them, but kind of in the middle. So I actually had just watched Bird with the Crystal Plumage maybe 3 months ago.
Okay.
For the first time. And it's probably one of my favorites of his. I love this one.
It's really good. Yeah, I've been waiting to talk about, like, when you chose this, I was like, I don't get to talk about the Italian stuff much. And I'm kind of late bloomered to it a bit, where I watched them as recommends on VHS tapes when I was a kid. And I was like, I don't get this. All the weird dubbing. And they were on crappy VHS. And then when I worked at IQC in Burbank, we had Blue Underground, and they put these out, and Uncut Bray, they put these out like crazy. So I was forced to watch them, and I started getting more of an appreciation for them. And then when they come on Blu-ray, I'm like, man, these are kind of beautifully shot. They look really nice. And so I became a big fan. I always liked Suspiria and others. Argento was easier for me than a lot of the other directors like Martino and stuff. But yeah, this is his first film written and directed. He worked with Leone before, and he comes to this one, and this got him labeled the Italian Hitchcock by a lot of people, and it's easy to see kind of why. Yeah. It's also the first color film of Vittorio Storaro, who is the preferred cinematographer of Warren Beatty and Bernardo Bertolucci, who also, this guy shot Apocalypse Now. So
wow,
he shot this, and then later in the decade he shoots Apocalypse Now. So this is kind of good. And before this, did you watch any Bava yet on that train?
Only maybe 2 at this point. not as much. Most of my Italian horror has been Argento.
Okay. Like Bava, he had like Blood and Black Lace, and then this movie called Evil Eye, but it's also Girl Who Knew Too Much, which those were like the first Giallo-y ones, and then this one took it to like that next level. So those are like the Halloween, and this one gets Friday the 13th, where it booms after this. And it's a movie turns voyeurism on its head a bit, like before this. So like there's the leering, watching these things, but they turn into murders, which they teases you with the sexuality of watching something, but then also, stabs or kills somebody. And I think he does a lot of his attacks in better taste than a lot that would follow after this. I can see this one getting lumped in with many of those movies where it's like, ooh, exploiting women and all this. But I think there's better taste in this one, even though, I mean, there's some weird things. But I think one of the more aggressive scenes is only done that way to throw you off from who the killer is, the way he shoots it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think even in the shots where they show the crime scene photos,
Mm-hmm.
they don't really show that much. They'll show suggestions
Yes.
of what was happening. Like you'll see like the pantyhose down around the ankles or something to kind of suggest what may or may not have happened during the murder.
Yeah.
And it definitely, he does take, I mean, I think that I don't want to say it's an Italian sensibility, but that's basically what I'm going to say. I feel like I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. I feel like European cinema takes things like violence and nudity in a much classier way than American films, especially at the time, probably did, especially with this kind of subject matter. Because like you said, like Friday the 13th, that franchise definitely takes it in a different direction.
Yeah. You know, he appreciate, like, it's like, because a lot of stuff in here, I'm like, man, the fashion's awesome. Like everybody looks really pretty, and like the guys look like Tony Musante. He looks like a stud in this, and they go, except for like some of the other side character guys, they aren't the best. I guess they aren't the best looking, but it's just I kind of have a thing for that, like 60s into 70s, the kind of psychedelic into the hippie stuff looks really cool in Rome in 1970, I guess. And the way he does it in a way, the murder that I was speaking of, where the woman's at home and the killer follows her in and she's getting ready for bed and he rips her shirt up. It doesn't come fully out. And then we're led to believe she's stabbed between the legs. We don't see that. It's just implied.
Yeah.
And for one, you can see her nipples through her shirt, but I feel like if this wasn't restored HD, you might not be able to see that.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably true, especially because it's like you said, I think fabric barely covers it to begin with. But then the fabric, like you said, is sheer, but you're not focusing on her boobs because she's being strangled.
Right.
So unless you're active, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of young boys that were actively looking for it, and probably young women also, but it's not as much in the forefront because like in the frame, that's happening, but there's also hands around the throat at the same time. So it definitely, he does a really good job of drawing your focus to where it needs to be, no matter what's happening on the screen. And he has a really great sense of blocking. I don't know. I honestly don't know if that's what the term they use in film. I was a theater kid, so to me, it's blocking.
I know what you mean. I did theater. I gotcha.
So even in that scene with the opening, where he comes across the attempted murder at the art gallery, like at first you don't really see anything. You just see movement, and it's again, it's he has such a good sense of angles that it's the suggestion of what's going on. That if you walked by something like that and you saw lots of movement going around in this big open window, you would look, and it kind of goes to that voyeuristic.
Yeah, exactly. And it plays. Let's go right from there. The witness at the beginning. This whole movie plays on male prejudice of everything, because the perspective angle is he would never think a woman would be the person attacking, and then the police never think of a woman as a subject or a suspect. Suspect in the murder, and they're totally way off on this case because they aren't even looking for a female. They're looking for a slender man with the build of a female, but they never even think of it. And that's part of the problem with it, and part of how he's able to play with your expectations. And it's just kind of funny how that works out. The women are the victims of a woman as well, and they just know. I mean, when you see that scene, anybody, I mean, woman watching it would think that too. I remember the first time I saw it, what made the movie just for me was the brilliance of the perspective angle. Seeing that scene, the opening, that attack is great, and then the revelation of, oh, it's not quite what I saw, and it works, even if the ending goes gung-ho or whatever. A lot of this one ends up pretty clean compared to a lot of giallo movies where they
Yes.
have their resolution. This one's pretty neat and tidy in comparison. But I really, that's what makes the movie is just, and that's where he gets the Hitchcock thing, is that brilliance of the perspective and the guy going nuts about it. And yeah.
That's something that I love about Argento films in general too, is that I feel like he was very much ahead of his time. Not just in his filmmaking style, but in how he created characters. Like, he makes a point of saying that they call the character a transvestite, which obviously isn't the proper term now, but saying the transvestite doesn't belong with the perverts.
Right.
And having gay characters and not having it be weird.
Yeah, they're just, it's life. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's even, he does the same thing with his female characters. I feel like a lot of his female characters play to what men expect of them, but really they're the strongest characters and show that they're capable of doing anything a man can do. In this case, it's murder. But
right.
But it's something like, obviously Suspiria does a lot of the same thing where it's women who are in power. And in this, it's, even though we don't like that this woman is murdering, the fact that when she has that break, she identifies with the aggressor rather than the victim.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I guess I should say what I'm talking about since we're not holding back spoilers, but
yeah.
She was assaulted as a child and almost murdered and had to get psychological help for that. And then for a long time, she was fine until she sees a painting that depicts the attack on her, and it triggers another psychotic break. But yeah, the fact that she associates with the aggressor is very interesting to me. And I feel like it's almost, even though she's going about it a wrong way, it's almost like she's taking her power back in a way. And I love that. I feel like that's a theme in a lot of Argento's work.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's very unappreciated in that, because a lot of people will take what he's doing for granted, or just like throw him with the rest of them. There's a lot of guys that are more mean-spirited in that genre, and he's not one of them, I don't think. I mean, he's got some movies with some ugly stuff in it, but I don't think it comes from an ugly place for him, or a exploitative place. But yeah, he also deals, I mean, this is a whole story about male impotence, like, going on. Like, this guy is seeking his hero moment from the introduction. Like, he's this guy who's this writer. He's like, I'm gonna go to Italy and finally solve my writer's block, and he can't. He's writing bird manuals and getting a cheap check for it, and he's returning. He's given up. He tries to save Monica at the beginning, and he gets shut in the glass case and can't do anything but sit and scream for help. And then, I mean, this one, he's trying to save the day at the end even, and he can't. He's trapped under a giant piece of art, and he's saved by a woman at the end too. And there's a little thing maybe with him and his girlfriend that might be going on too, where he's having trouble in bed, but that's implied if you want it there or not. But this whole story is about just this guy not being able to be able to, he's struggling with the impotence, but then finally accepting that, hey, maybe I don't have to be this kind of guy in the end, as he goes back to America with his girlfriend.
Which I have to say also, the first time I watched this film, I suspected early on that it was a woman, but I honestly, up until the scene where the killer comes for the girlfriend at the apartment, I thought it was going to be the girlfriend.
Oh, well, yeah, because there's a weird red herring there where the guy, the detective's like, have I seen you before? She's like, no.
Well, and even when he brings the copy of the painting home and puts it on the wall, there's that weird long drawn out scene where they're hugging and she's really creepily staring at the painting. And the moment she sees it, she's affected by it, and it's like, oh, I don't like that. So it definitely, I don't know if it was intentional that we were supposed to think that it could be her. Especially since for the most part, it seems like we're supposed to assume that a man did it. But I definitely, up until the killer comes and tries to kill her, I was convinced that she was the killer.
There you go. Yeah, I do like her. It's been complained that she doesn't have much to do, but I like her helping him with the case. It's kind of adorable. And then she has that great scene where you think she's gonna. I mean, she's getting attacked slowly in the apartment as the trauma, and it's like a real door. It's not just like shattering through. It's slowly putting the knife through the hole, and that's just an intense scene where you think she's done for, but nope, all that intensity and she's safe. But yeah, but it meant like I cared about her, I guess. So I guess she's not that hollow. Like I didn't want to see something bad happen to her, but that was a great sequence, I thought. And Argento's got a lot of good point of view and lighting and stuff with that scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I did notice there's only 2 points of view in the movie. It's Sam and the killer. So we only see the movie from their eyes. And one time the killer from the killer's eyes on Sam a couple times as well.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that first person point of view, especially when it's funny. Because like I said, I only saw this film for the first time a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the opening scene is the first, or one of the first victims being photographed by the killer. And we're seeing through the camera lens as they're snapping the pictures. And as soon as that scene happened with the music, I was like, oh, Death Proof.
Right.
Because Death Proof is my favorite Tarantino movie. And
oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a scene where Stuntman Mike is photographing the second group of women. It's the same thing. It's the same music. It's the same shot through the camera and with it clicking on them.
I didn't pick up on that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, when you're obsessed with Death Proof.
I love this. We did a commentary on Death Proof last year, I think, but I'll read it. I'll tell you because you don't know me and you've never heard me say this, but it's been claimed that that's Tarantino's weakest movie, his worst movie. I'm like, his worst movie would be the best movie for like 99% of directors out there.
Yeah.
So that film is very impressive.
I mean, I feel I hate to say this. I'd like not to bring the sexist card into this, but I feel like a lot of women, it's their favorite Tarantino film.
That's fair. I enjoy the heck out of Death Proof. I'm not that guy. I'm not. I've been since I saw it. I saw it at the Chinese theater opening weekend, and everybody was Planet Terror that weekend. I was Death Proof. That was so, and it gets better every time you watch it. It really does. I seriously. But we were talking.
I mean,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Continue.
I to plug myself a little bit. I love that film so much that I wrote an article in the first issue of the We Are Horror zine about Death Proof and how it is actually a really great rape revenge film without actually explicitly having rape in it.
No, that's good. No, the themes and the stuff, it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
which it's funny because I don't think I had seen this movie when I wrote that article. Maybe I had. I can't remember. Or maybe it was around the same time that I wrote it. So I didn't make the connection. But in a way, I mean, this film, in a way, is also a rape revenge film.
Yeah. Not
in the way that we're used to seeing, but...
Right. They spare us having to watch it.
Yes. Well, and it's... The revenge isn't on the killer, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously why we like rape revenge films, is because we want to see the bad guys get what's coming to them.
True.
But at least in her mind, she's getting some kind of, not necessarily revenge, but some kind of, I can't even think of a good word for it. I don't know.
Comeuppance?
She's getting something out of it.
That's the less classy word that came to my mind. Comeuppance?
She's getting her power from it.
There you go.
Getting her power back.
Yeah, and she's terrific. Like I watch this movie every time, and I want more of her in it. But it's kind of good that I guess they don't. But I really like what the actress is bringing, and she's got a real iconic look to her. Kind of I mean, maybe just the fashion again.
And her laugh.
Oh yeah,
her laugh at the end when she finally reveals to Sam is his name, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Finally reveals to him that she's the one that's killer. Her laugh is amazing. I'm all about a good evil laugh, and she pulls it off so well.
Oh, it's maniacal. It's great. I love her craziness. Go for it. That's what I'm saying. Speaking of stuff, there was the I really liked the scene the chase scene with the hitman, where they had the kind of the chase and then the reversal on it. That was really, I like the way he shot that, the perspective when this guy just gets dropped off by the killer to kill our main character, Tony Musante, and he ends up running into a chase. He gets into a crowd, and then it turns when the hitman gets there, and it's a crowded street, and the hitman then turns to walk away to get away from it, and then Tony Musante follows him, and he finds out he's some like ex-boxer. And here's another anti-masculinity thing. You go into this boxer convention where they're all talking about like their health problems and all the weekend and stuff, so it's kind of a nice little flip upside down as well.
Which that actually kind of plays into what you're talking about how he keeps wanting to be the hero of the story. Because why the hell he ran to the crowd and was like, hey, some guy is chasing me, trying to kill me. But then when he sees him turn around the corner and walk off, instead of having these people come help him, he runs off on his own to follow the guy.
Yeah, he slowly follows him. Yeah.
It's
like,
and it's he clearly wants to be the hero. He doesn't want any help in catching this guy who just tried to kill him, which is absolutely idiotic. The guy was just trying to shoot you. Maybe get some help.
Right. And yeah, there's another wild thing we haven't talked about. The artist guy, the big red herring, the guy who drew the painting. He goes to find and he eats cats.
I feel like that's like very, very typical Italian horror of the time. There's always one thing that just does not make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I get going there to get the context and the exposition of what happened in the past and to learn about the painting. But to have him be this weird hermit that has walled himself up in his house and he eats cats is just takes it to a whole different level.
It's like, get out of there. Like, it's a weird, it's an offshoot. It kind of has to happen, but it still stands out in the movie. We go all around here on the show. You were talking about how you thought that Susie Kendall was possibly suspect. I noticed something the last time when I watched the movie again for this show. I've seen it many times. The first time I ever noticed, after the husband, when he falls out the window and dies at the end, because they think it's him, we get this, Argento shoots Tony Musante out with the cops and whatever, and they shoot him so he's got a tall, slender statue, and then he gets a cigarette with his left hand as if to maybe one last time go, maybe he's it. Like, it's kind of a weird, because they do make a point early on when he visits the husband and he throws him the lighter of the cigarettes and he catches it with his left hand, and the husband's a tall, slender guy. And then Tony Musante at the end, after that guy dies, is tall. He shoots him tall and slender, and then he gets a cigarette from a guy with his left hand and lights it. And I'm like, was he trying to get us one more time on that? But clearly we find out later he's not it. But overall, I think this is one of like my favorite directorial debuts like I've ever seen. I've never seen somebody so focused and just well done, knows what they want, confident, like with this. Like it happens few and far between. That's why we know Argento is one of the greats, but it's just fascinating to see how perfect this movie fits together and kind of feels like it's what he wants.
Yeah.
Right, like, from the get-go.
If I didn't know where it fell in his filmography, I wouldn't think that it was his first.
No. And
there are others that came after it I would probably think were his first, but not this one.
Yeah, it's much better than his like follow-up Cat o' Nine Tails, which I think is all right, but it's much better than that. It's neater than Four Flies with Grey Velvet, and then Deep Red. Everybody loves that one, so flip a coin with those two. But yeah. It's a hot start for him, really. And I don't know. We got any more we want to talk about this, or we'd hit any bullet points you got that you want to?
I like that this is his only one in his animal trilogy that actually has the animal.
The animal, yeah, they count. Yeah, they do. Is there no cat in Cat O' Nine Tails?
I mean, I don't. If there is, it might be in passing. I don't, but it's
But it
not
has nothing
integral
to
to
do
the
with the title.
plot.
Right,
Yeah,
right. The bird, and it's a cool title for all. I mean, all these would
yeah.
go. You'd have all crazy titles trying to fit in, like 4 flies. I'm like, isn't a fly an animal? Like they go the animal trilogy. I'm like, what's the third animal? Flies. Oh, okay, sure. But
And I have to say, it bugs me that in almost every picture that I've seen or poster for Bird with Crystal Plumage, it's not the bird from the film. They
no,
usually depict a peacock.
right? Yeah, it's a peacockish thing. Yeah,
It's like, no, that's not. Did you even watch the film? Because that's not what this bird is.
yeah. And, hey, sometimes they didn't with the posters.
True.
And here's a picture of this guy, and there's murder. So yeah, because they put the bird like right with the title on the poster, I think, and then I think they have the Susie Kendall at the door getting scared on some of them, and then there's the one in Italy. They have the murder that we talked about a lot at the beginning. That one's depicted on the Italian poster, from what I can remember.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, the bird. Okay.
Bird is the word.
Bird is the word. All right. Do we move on? You good? Any more?
Sure.
Whatever you want. Okay. So now's our what else segment. And so we're talking about other things. So what else? So this is just where we kind of talk what else we've watched recently or what else we might have out there for you to check out in the writing, listening, video, whatever world. So Molly, what have you been up to lately?
Because I had some time, I actually caught up on some reading most recently. 2 that absolutely blew me away were, oh my God, now I'm going to blank on the titles. When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. Absolutely fantastic thriller. I bought it because I saw someone describe it as Get Out meets Rear Window.
Oh.
And Rear Window is my favorite Hitchcock. So, and Get Out obviously is amazing. And I think it's definitely, with the political climate that we're in, I think it's a really great read in general, but it also, like, the suspense was really good and how it builds upon itself. And it definitely has the perfect vibe of those 2 films put into book form. And then the other one is actually one that isn't out yet, but might be by the time this podcast airs. I'm not sure.
Could be. There's a lot, as I mentioned up top, there's a lot of dated things that can happen on the show. I don't care.
It's either the first or second week of October that this one is first or second full week of October, I should say, because and
that'll be when the second week is when this should drop.
Okay, perfect. So it should be out then, hopefully. And it's Video Palace: The Search for the Eyeless Man. This is a Shudder book that is actually, I guess you could kind of describe it as a sequel to their podcast called Video Palace.
Okay.
And it's I hadn't even, I hate to say it, I hadn't heard of the podcast before I got the book, but I listened to the podcast beforehand. Absolutely scared the shit out of me. It's one of those ones where it's telling a story. It's a guy who's investigating these weird white tapes, and the weird things surrounding them. Chase Williamson does the voice of the main character in the podcast, and then the book, it's almost formatted like it's an academic research type of book, and it's a professor who's researching the eyeless man, who is someone that pops up a lot in connection to the white tapes, and he's doing his own investigation, but throughout it has multiple short stories written by other people, like Rebecca McKendry is in there, Bria Grant's in there, like ton of awesome people in the horror community. Graham Skipper has a story in there.
Oh, cool.
And it's so well done, and I was amazed by it because every story is very different and they all have different writing styles, but there's such a great cohesiveness to it. And very few books scare me, and there were a couple in there where I was like, I don't know if I want to turn the light out right now and go to bed.
Wow.
So it's really good. I was very pleasantly surprised.
That reminds me, it sounds like, did you ever read the book House of Leaves?
Yes.
Kind of
Love that.
you're reminding me of that. And that, I swear, I lived by myself in an apartment when that was out, and I would read it at night, and I swear stuff would happen, like reading the House of Leaves. I'm like, I'd closing this book. Like that.
Video Palace will give you that same kind of vibe.
Okay, cool.
And it'll make you somewhat wary of the media that you consume, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but
I did. Oh gosh, have you read This Is Not Propaganda?
Mm-mm.
Oh, yeah. That's a true story. But that's a wild one to talk about media we consume. But yeah, not necessarily you or I consume, but others consume. Yeah. What? Anything else or?
I mean, I'm always watching movies. I just watched
we do.
Brie Grant's 12-Hour Shift. I think I
Okay.
just watched that yesterday, which was really fun. Definitely like dark comedy thriller kind of story. Trying to think. This one, I technically watched it probably a month ago now, but I'm gonna plug it everywhere I can because I love this movie so much.
Do it.
It's not even available anywhere yet because it just started its film festival circuit. But the Block Island Sound.
Okay.
I just watched it when it was at Fantasia Film Fest. Holy shit, is that movie so good. It's really hard to explain because it's one of the, I mean, I wrote a review for it, so you can read my review if you wanted to. But it's a combination of different subgenres of horror, and the way they weave everything together and the way they reveal details of what's happening while also kind of having a really tight-knit family drama. It's the McManus, God, I can't talk today. McManus brothers wrote and directed it. And it's so good. I was so blown away. It was my favorite film that I saw at the festival, and I think I ended up watching like 26 or 27 films at the festival. It might be at least one of my favorites of the year so far, and
okay.
I mean it's almost October, so we're getting close to the end, but it's one of those ones where I'm going to continue to watch for when it actually is released because I need it. I need to see it again.
I love when like new ones come out that you make and you put in the rotation, because I'll watch everything and then something will come out like, this is a bigger title, but like It Follows. Like I loved It Follows, so now that's in my rotation every year all the time, and it's nice. I feel like we get more. We're getting better at getting those nowadays more than we used to. Now it's like, oh, every year there's probably like 5 you could throw in your rotation. I mean, that are great and good ones too. I mean, it's solid with that. But me, thanks for asking, Molly. Hey, I just finished and wrote my review up for Stargirl, the complete first season on Blu-ray, which I had to watch for Wife So Blue, and it's all right. My kids were really drawn to it. I did not expect that. I mean, we do watch like the superhero shows can be our family shows and stuff, but they really like this one a lot. It's very Smallville-ish when you compare it to the other stuff that's around. It's charming. I don't think it's a go seek it out type thing, but if you're looking for something with like a family to watch, it's fine. I dropped today when we're recording, which is going to be like a week or two ago, but go check it out anyway. I was a person who celebrated the 25th anniversary of Halloween 6 or Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers with that's an important film in my life in the honest way possible, because it was the first time I saw Michael Myers in the theater, and the legacy of the producer's cut taught me a lot about film. Like I knew of extended cuts or added scenes here and there, but I never knew you could change like the whole third act of a movie and change exactly what the heck it was. And so back in 1995 when this came out and I saw the movie, I was confused. I thought maybe I didn't get it. I thought maybe I was like, I need to see this again. There's something I'm missing. No, it was hodgepodge thrown together. They wouldn't intend to answer questions. And then I found out the producers, because my Fangoria magazine, the pictures didn't match stuff that happened in the movie. So I was like, where was this part? Because they did a set thing. Because Halloween 6, we laugh now. We go, oh, it's Paul Rudd's early movie. That was like Entertainment Tonight was covering it. It was the return of Michael Myers. He'd been gone since 1989. It was still prestigious. And there was this producer's cut, and you had to scour the internet to find someone who had it. It was like a VHS copy of a copy of a copy. It was like The Ring, but with Michael Myers. And I finally got it, and I lived with it forever. Like, I forgot the theatrical version out of my mind once I got the producer's cut. And so I've written about Halloween 6 and my experience with it plenty, so I touched upon it, but I wanted to cover like other films that have had these legendary other cuts that have been either released or still out there that maybe don't exist. So I highlighted on, like, I had a special section, the Ridley Scott section, because he tinkers with his stuff a lot, but I covered how, like, I've covered movies that we've gotten the cuts from, like Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, and stuff we haven't, like the recent movie, the Star Wars movie Solo. That movie got a hella reshot and changed the vibe of it and stuff, and the villain got recasted. So there's another way to watch that movie sitting on the ground. And covered, like, Annie Hall is not what he released. It's like a third of what he shot and what he tried to do. So there's that out there in the world. So there's, like, I mean, it fascinates me. So I wrote, that's how I celebrated Halloween 6 at 25. And then also I want to plug Out Now with Aaron and Abe. It's October, so I'm a part of I'll be there every week for this month with their horror podcast series. They've begun. It's me, Aaron Newirth, James Oster, a.k.a. Jimmy O from JoeBlow.com, and Jason Coleman from Flicks for Fans. We're doing a subject every week. Week 1 is diversity in horror. The second week, Friday the 13th, 40th anniversary retrospective. And then the next week, Arachnophobia, 30th anniversary retrospective. I finally won Aaron over after fighting for years and years, and this is a good preempt for this. We're doing a Giallo Italian horror discussion.
Nice.
For the week. And then last, we end it with a commentary for the movie Psycho for its 60th anniversary. So,
wow, lots of anniversaries.
Yeah, it's a big year, big milestone year. At least we're not like it's the 32nd anniversary. Real milestones, folks, real milestones. But yeah, so that's what I've got going on. All right, well, I'll wrap up this part. And okay, so that'll wrap us up for today. Molly, it has been an absolute delight meeting you and talking Argento. Please tell everyone the best places to find where you're doing. I don't care if it's 80 places or one. Let us know.
Right now, probably the best places to find me are Twitter at bloggingbanshee and on Instagram at blogging.banshee. And even though I'm embarrassed to plug this as well, I have become embarrassingly involved on TikTok. And I'm way too old for that shit, but here we are. So you can find me on there at the Blogging Banshee.
There we go. All right. And instead of plugging myself, I'm going to plug Molly, because you should really follow her on Twitter and Instagram. She's really funny. She's got good ideas and her work's great. So I'm going to skip my plug this week to plug her. And I'll return tomorrow with 4K Blues Day. But until then, remember to keep the positivity in your online film chatter.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at thebrandonpetershow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail@thebrandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.